How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Mojo Group. Mike here. Today, on a rainy day, but also a very good day because I finally solved the problem that I've even made public very recently on my airplane. So, if you recall or you follow some of the recent videos, I have been having a fuel pressure issue on the Sling TSI. And if I tell you the detailed story of events and things that happen and get into a resolution with this issue, you would not even believe me. But it definitely made me realize something about the cost and expense of not just owning an airplane, but really that's spread across nationally for those who are either flying, whether you're renting or whether you're flying your own airplane. Sometimes we think of aviation and we think of how expensive it is, but there are obvious reasons why airplanes are expensive or flying is expensive. Obviously, there's stuff happening in the economy, fuel costs, but also you have the FAA. Dealing with the FAA, that gets expensive because the FAA is usually slow or slower than we would want. So every time you deal with FAA or certification, things get expensive. And of course, there's insurance. So there are all these obvious reasons, but there's something's happening behind the scenes that you're not even realizing is costing you a lot of money. And I think it's a bigger problem, which is why I'm making a video about it. Back to One My Golf. In recent months, I've been having some fuel drop issue in this airplane. Now, November 661 My Golf, for those who have been following the journey on this channel, this is a fairly new airplane. It's only 5 years old. And although the engine, which is a Rotax 915, has had some common issues with the fuel pump, I know particularly for this airplane, we've had a new pump installed a couple of years ago. Also, new fuel lines installed a couple of years ago. So it was a little bit concerning and disturbing that this issue was happening. So naturally, I thought, well, because this engine is known for so-and-so, so I went back to Rotax, I went back to the manufacturer, asked a bunch of questions, and to the life of me, no one was able to provide a solution. On paper, everything looked good. So it was now time to just depend on the mechanic and help troubleshoot and find out what's going on. We finally got to a resolution, but it wasn't even through an A&P mechanic. It was through a friend. I got so frustrated with the situation that I asked somebody else that's not a mechanic, but also a pilot, to have a second look at the airplane. Now, not only was the problem a lot smaller than we thought, it's also a fraction of the cost. But it would take over $5,000 already spent and the airplane being down when I went through an A&P mechanic. And I want to make something clear that this video is not being made to bash mechanics out there, but rather highlight a consistent problem that I'm noticing, which is problem-solving skills, right? Whenever I've taken my airplane to a shop or to an A&P mechanic, it's usually they go to the manual and then they ask you to get parts, get this part, and if that part doesn't work, guess what? You just continue and you continue going through that roller coaster until they find a resolution. The only problem with that process is that it gets very expensive very quickly because, as you know, aviation parts are not cheap, but also you have the lead time. Every time you order a part, you have to wait to receive that part. You also have to wait until that A&P mechanic has time for you. In our case, we have access to mechanics, say, than the average person. An average pilot would have to take their plane to a shop, pay the shop fee, and then wait until that shop gets to their airplane on the line. So all of these things add up to the cost of ownership. Now, back to November 661 My Golf. We started with the problem, and as any other pilot would do, I take it to a mechanic or I have a mechanic take a look at it. And so we started troubleshooting. And it went from, okay, let's bleed the fuel out. Let's trade out the fuel. That didn't solve the problem. Now it was a matter of, let's change out the fuel filter. Let's change out some of these plugs. So we just went on and on and on, changing out parts and still not getting to a resolution. And of course, the whole time the airplane stayed grounded because we couldn't fly it. Now, after several months of going through this deadly cycle, I asked a friend to come take a look at the problem. Now, my friend, his background is in electronics, is a software engineer, but he's a real scientist, and I love the way he problem solves. Guys, he arrived on the day of. The first hour, all he did was ask questions. He didn't touch the airplane. He just asked me questions about the airplane and how this usually works or what the checklist looked like. And I ran through everything. And within the next 20, 30 minutes, he was able to figure out exactly what was causing this fuel pressure drop. Now, keep in mind, prior to bringing him in, I'd already spent over $5,000 paying mechanics, buying parts, and just having the airplane sit. And in this case, the problem was solved by a $5 tool from the auto shop. So what we found out was that the fuel pump was actually perfectly okay. Nothing wrong with the fuel lines. We cleaned it out. Nothing wrong with the fuel filter. We changed it out anyway. Nothing wrong with the gasculator. It was a crack. Guys, it was a crack in a vacuum line. That was it. A small rubber, and I'm gonna get it for you actually. Here it is. Imagine having a crack in this tube right here, this hose. That was what was causing the issue the whole time. So I went to the auto store. This is a test tube just to test the problem and see if that was the problem. And this right here cost $5 from the auto store. We changed out this line, and then we also replaced the pressure sensor. Guys, parts, $5, pressure sensor was about $170. And when we turned the airplane back on, it showed numbers that I had never even seen before, meaning the pressure, the fuel pressure was much higher than I'd ever seen before. And the whole time, it was a crack in a simple hose like this. And I've had mechanics look at this airplane and charge fees, charge for their labor, charge for the parts, and on and on and on, and all to end up with a simple resolution. Now, again, I'm not making this video to bash our mechanics because we need them and they do a great job in supporting our fleet. But it makes me wonder how many people out there are going through the same cycle. And it also makes me wonder the type of training that A&P mechanics are receiving out of school, because a basic skill of knowing how to problem solve is so important to this trade. Okay, it's so important, and it's a skill, guys. It's not something that you just pick up. I truly believe that problem solving, process of elimination is so important. That approach is so important to maintain an airplane that if we go the other route, it just gets more expensive. And now, in my case, I'm going to fix this problem for less than $500 as compared to the over $5,000 that I've already paid not to have it solved. And I wonder how many other pilots and or aircraft owners and operators go through the same issue. The fact is, when we have something wrong with the airplane, we take it to the professionals, the guys and girls we know. They've gone to training for this, and they're the ones able to fix and sign off on the airplane. And I'll be honest, it's one of the reasons why I love experimental planes, because if this was a certified airplanes, I couldn't really gather my friends and say, hey, come look at this problem for me. And or let's go to the auto store and get and problem solve, right? Whereas with an experimental airplane, I'm able to do that because I have a freedom to change parts, even touch the airplane myself. But needless to say that it's important for us to be able to maintain trust with mechanics, and they go through their own problems too, don't get me wrong, but I imagine how much more lenient it would be for everybody if we get to solve the problem by taking a different approach. Outside of dealing with the FAA and certification, the biggest other expense you're going to have with your airplane and or flying is maintenance. Maintenance costs can go up significantly, especially if you're not paying good attention. And generally speaking, maintenance affects everything else, especially if you're an operator. If you operate a fleet of airplanes, every time your airplane goes down, you're not only losing money on the fact that the airplane is down, but you're also losing money on potential revenue. And keep in mind, just like a car, When a car breaks down, you generally have to tow it to the shop, but in aviation, we at least have tugs and tow bars. Guess how much it costs to have your airplane towed in and out of your hangar at this airport? $150. And thank God, shameless plug, I have that guy over there. So my air tug, as I've shown in the videos before, that air tug is more than paid for itself because we move planes in and out of this hangar. And every time this thing comes in handy and we pull it in and out rather than going to pay $150. So guys, as I'm going through these experiences, I'm just thinking out loud. And I also think that this is something that applies not just to A&P mechanics, but also to pilots. This is a conversation that we're having internally on how to teach our pilots how to problem solve, right? When you're flying, you also have to understand why certain things are happening and not just take it as black and white. I think the same thing applies to training of A&P mechanics. I just wonder what could be. Imagine if I only had to spend $500 out of pocket rather than $5,000. It adds up. It always does. Okay, that's my spiel for the day, and I've got some important announcement actually on November 661 My Golf, because we're going to have that airplane here available to everyone for time building soon. And to know more, go to lookupflightacademy.com. You can reach out to us there and we'll send you updates as well. Just stay tuned for an updated video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Mike and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.